Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show.
Welcome back to the Money Bear Podcast. Today I've got my friend Shannon Weinstein on. Shannon, who started out as an internet friend, and I guess technically we're still internet friends because we've never met in real life before, but Shannon Weinstein is the big brain behind Financial Solutions. She is also the podcast host of I almost said Earn Your Leisure. And I'm like, damn, we got big today. Keep what you earn. Keep what you earn. Same word in there. Mm-hmm. But Shannon, it's so nice to have you on today. I'm excited to chat with you.
That's just good SEO in progress right there. You think that wasn't intentional? How many people have earn in their name?
Smart. People are going to be searching Earn Your Leisure and then yours is just going to pop up. And it's going to be like different, but like same. Like still basically. But Shannon, the reason I like you and started following you initially is because one, you're like the number one recommended person in terms of other people who are in the finance creator space, in terms of like who is somebody we can follow or take their program or work with when it comes to understanding tax needs of creators and content creators, online business owners, all these different types of things. And you were one of the first people who was recommended to me. And also, I just really like you because you're not boring and you cuss and you're interesting. Mm-hmm. You're not like what I think of when I think of a CPA. No offense to CPAs.
That's like, I know, but that's the ultimate compliment, right? Like that was kind of the point when I built my business was I wanted to leave the dry, crusty old firm and go, and it's like, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do it my way. And I'm still going to be really good at it. Mm-hmm. And I still know what I know, but I'm just going to do it with a little bit more humanity, personality, and make it more approachable for people.
A little bit of pizzazz.
Yeah, why not?
Shannon pizzazz. Love it. Well, and I like it too, because like I feel like people would say the same thing for me and the education that I provide. They're like, that's not what I was expecting. Somebody teaching me about index funds, I would have thought it'd be like some old dude in a suit.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, nope, you get a dancing or attempting to dance person in booty shorts. And you know what? We got to do our own pizzazz. So you have been in the accounting CPA space for a long time. I want to say over a decade, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got my license in 2009.
Right. I can't believe that was over a decade ago.
Yeah, it's like 15 years almost.
I know. It's crazy. And you, if I remember correctly, said that you fell into accounting because of your dad, or it was like the only option. Can you kind of tell us, I know your dad has had a lot of influence on your life and especially your financial decisions and your expertise. Kind of take us through what was money like growing up for you? What got you even interested in finances? And how did you end up buying a stock for the very first time at 12 years old? Take us through it.
Yes. So I had the weirdest upbringing that I just realized was weird. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you come out of your hometown, your zone, your family, you meet people in college, you meet people after college, and you're like, wait, you guys didn't do this growing up, or you guys didn't have this, like you guys didn't. So you're only kind of aware of what's around you. And what's so funny is that my mom always worked as an administrative assistant. She was like a secretary. She was like so on the ball, project manager to the T. My dad was a CPA who hid in a cave for 3 months and we didn't know why. But he was basically like, it was all binders. It was a lot of paper. It was going to the office. We have no idea what he does. We were like, this guy is like the most boring job ever. I have no idea what he does. He just like crunches numbers all day as a calculator with like a big tape that makes noise.
Right.
You know, like what does he actually do? So ever since I was a little kid, my dad was like, you want to be an accountant when you grow up? And I was like, no. I didn't know what that meant, but I was just like, I don't want to make him happy. Cause like what kid is like, sure, that sounds great over astronaut, artist, whatever.
Right.
You know, like I was like, no, that sounds horrible. And most people would agree with me even now at the age of 40, they'd be like, yeah, it is horrible. But But the funny thing is he kept asking. And then one day, so very lucky, I guess you could say. People don't like the word lucky, blessed, whatever. I'm very grateful for the fact that in my high school, we had an accounting class and there was a requirement that you had to take some type of what they call practical arts. They had like, this will date me, typing,
nice,
Microsoft, how to use like Excel Access and Word. And then they had intro to business, which was like how to reconcile a checking account and do basic
intro to business.
I don't know.
A checking account. Excuse me.
It was like, but honestly, it was like their way of getting in basic daily money skills.
Fair enough.
And then they had like how to write a check too, which like is like, again, like cursive now.
So useless now.
Pointless. Right. Then there was accounting. And my dad said, listen, you have to take one of these classes. I already took a couple of them. And he said, take accounting. If you hate it, I will never ask you again to become an accountant. But if you love it, you need to go major in it. And I was a junior in high school at the time. And I was like, all right, you're on. Because either way I win. I'll either love it or you'll stop nagging me. I'm in. So I got in there and within 2 weeks, I was like, I freaking love this. I had over 100 average. I was doing extra credit. I was like crushing it. And I moved into the senior level honors accounting with one other person that year. We got bumped to senior and I got to take another accounting class my senior year. And then when I went to college, I majored in it, spoiler alert. And I ended up actually tutoring as a freshman, the other freshmen and sophomores.
Oh my gosh. So you were like, it was in your blood, literally.
I was literally, but it was so funny because I didn't want that to happen. I was like, I'm going to hate this. I'm going to like sometimes listen to your parents. And I was very glad that he was trying to influence me that way. And here's how he did it. He sat down with me and said, if you understand this, Shan, because I wanted to teach Spanish and we were talking about this. My goal was to teach Spanish and I loved Spanish. It was like my number one subject other than this. And he said, Shannon, do you want to teach a language? I said, yes. He's like, do you want to share your language with other people? Yes. This is the language you need to go teach.
Yes. And I love that.
That was the catalyst for like, oh my God. Because he said, less people speak it. More people need to know it. And you have a gift, he said. He was like, this is like a superhero not using their superpower. Aww. He's like, if you understand this, you need to go use it. And of course, he was like, do you also like to go to Disney World?
Also, it pays the bills pretty well. So
like, he really wanted to make sure that I had what he was doing this entire time, which I didn't realize until literally his deathbed. But I didn't realize that the entire time he was trying to advise me on my education, my career, and so on, it was to buy me choices. He said, you will have more choices if you take this path than if you took Spanish teaching. And no, I'm not knocking anyone with that profession, but I believe he was right. I have way more options of what I want to do than I would have if I chose another path. So I'm very grateful for losing that bet with him.
I love that. And I remember when I was on your podcast, which again, shout out to Keep What You Earn. And apparently shout out to Earn Your Leisure. You guys won't find me on that podcast though. But we were talking about how, I was a language person too. I studied English. I also double majored in Spanish. And I thought the same thing. I thought that what I wanted to do was teach Spanish or teach English abroad. And I did that for a little bit of time. But I think the reason I'm so good at teaching and explaining these really complicated processes is because I understand how to break these really complicated things down into these bite-sized chunks that people can actually understand. Yeah. And I think that also is what adds to your ability as a teacher as well as an educator and obviously as a business owner too, because it's a powerful combination of the creative side of things also and the very practical side of things. What I'm curious about though is what do you think your dad saw within you that made him really know? Because it doesn't sound like, or if he did, you haven't mentioned it. It doesn't sound like he was pushing your sister to go into accounting.
No, that ship had sailed.
So he saw something in you. What do you think it was?
I think he knew I liked math. We used to we had this funny thing, like, okay, this goes back to, I never got an allowance as a kid. And it was not because there was no policy on allowances. It was because I didn't like to work. So I didn't get any money because I was like, I don't care if I rake the leaves or I do whatever in the yard, I get money. I'd rather not have money and not work. That was me as a kid. I was lazy as hell and I didn't want to do anything. And then what kind of unraveled from there was my dad would start giving me money when I won bets with him. So like we would bet on the most random stuff, or he actually transitioned into, okay, Shannon's not going to work for her money. She has no desire to like mow the lawn, do anything for money. So what he started doing was, and I don't know if this was intentional, but he started rewarding intelligence. So he started rewarding things like he would quiz me on state capitals and he would quiz me on times tables, like rapid fire. He would start throwing like questions at me and like Jeopardy style. Like, and if I could he basically turned my life into a game show where I could win money. So he's like,
love that. That's genius.
He's like he's like, if you ain't going to work outside, well, then you better be smart.
Right.
So we were like, I remember him betting me. I will never forget. Like we went to Friendly's and he was like, if you know the capital of Wyoming, I'll buy you an ice cream. And then,
that's incredible.
And I was like, and I was racking my brain and I was like, I know this. And then I looked at him and I was like, Cheyenne. He's like, son of a, and then he turned the car around and was like, all right,
oh my ice cream. Gosh, I love that. What a genius way for him to find out, like to really look at what motivates you and then to essentially reward that behavior, the intelligence and the curiosity, it sounds like.
Right. And it's also like, this is why I'm a compelling overachiever.
Right.
Like,
yes.
This is also
and competitive.
This is why I'm super competitive. And then why I immediately go like, I got this answer right. What do I get? Like,
yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so we kind of skipped ahead. We skipped to high school where you were like, all right, I'm going to take an accounting class to win this bet. And then before that though, you had purchased a stock. And how did he get you started with that?
So, okay. So there are a couple of things. Like number one, again, really grateful that in 6th grade, we had a math teacher who was like, F whatever the hell I was supposed to teach you. We're going to do a mock stock portfolio at age 14. So we actually took fake money, had to look, but this was also, by the way, like we had to check the newspaper.
So cute.
And the tickers. Like, you know, like kids waking up in the morning looking for their town on the like thing. Oh my God, it's on the W's. Shoot, like I'm in the T. Like I got to wait for the whole thing to cycle. Nobody will ever understand that anticipation of like waiting for the school thing. I was looking at the ticker symbols in the morning going like, how did GE do today?
That's so like, cute. And I love that.
I go like, how's GE? How's GE? How's this? How's this? We bought this. We're going to sell this. We're going to do. And it was actually kind of fun as a kid to like play this game with it because for two things. One, it was educational. But two, you kind of inserted yourself into this experience of buying and selling stocks, and it completely de-escalated the seriousness of what this actually is because we actually we gamified it as teenagers and as like, you know, preteens. We gamified this thing. And now, right now, I cannot, like, I look at the market and I'm like, this is nothing more than fake money floating around in the air and like all these numbers and scorekeeping. Right, it's nothing more than a game that we're all playing. And it was just really interesting to me because it just helped de-escalate, again, seriousness. It helped me demystify it. And I was like, this isn't that serious. Like, it's easy to learn, and took down that barrier for me that I didn't realize could have been there had I not done that. So that was really cool.
What a powerful exercise to essentially set an entire class up of kids to hopefully and potentially think like that in the future of like, oh yeah,
totally.
This is not that big of a deal. This is just something you have to do in order to build your wealth. And the stock market's not as scary. Like I learned this as a kid. And man, shout out to that teacher. Cause like, number one, that they had the education. It's
crucial.
To even be able to do that. And then the desire to teach that to some middle schoolers. So very cool.
Yeah. And then back to your question, because I know where you're going with this, was when I was a kid, I was obsessed with getting like toys or whatever. I like anything I wanted was definitely like a material item from like Toys R Us or whatever. I wanted the Cabbage Patch doll. I wanted the thing. I wanted the PlayStation. And one year, I forget what toy I wanted because it doesn't matter at this point. But I was like, I really want this thing from Toys R Us. And my dad would look at me and he'd go, how about instead of a toy from Toys R Us, I'm going to buy you a piece of the whole toy store. And I was like,
you're like intrigued.
What? And he's like, I'm going to buy you a piece of the whole store. And I was like, how does that work? Like, is this like a timeshare situation? How does this work? I didn't understand what he was talking about. I was like 11. I was like 11 or 12. And he bought me Toys R Us stock.
Oh, poor
share,
stock.
But when you get like the little share, like Shannon owns a share, and it was a little certificate, and he's like, you now own the company. And I was like, what? You bought the company? So cool. I know, but like that was like that was the introduction. That's something in my life that happened where I was like, tell me how, like, I'm confused. Please explain this to me like I'm 12. And it's like, because I am. And that type of experience, when he would do things like that when I was super young, that were like theoretically above my understanding, my level of intelligence, he allowed me to like accelerate my learning and go, oh, this makes sense because you're explaining to it like a caveman, which is just like, okay, they issue these shares. Everyone can own a piece. You own a piece of it, even though it's really small. And then the price goes up and down based on how people buy and sell these things. And I'm like, oh, okay. Got it.
That's amazing. Because it's like,
and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because so many people do think like, oh no, I can't understand this. People in their 30s and their 40s think I can't understand this, but it's like, no, it's just it hasn't been taught to you in a way that really you probably do need it explained to you like you're 12.
Well, you're exposed to what's hitting 40 and 50-year-old experts of this. Mm-hmm. So you're reading the stuff that these experts are reading.
Right.
When
you're not there.
When in reality, like if you never watched Sesame Street, would you know how to do calculus? Right. Yeah. But what you're doing is you're watching someone do calculus. Like you're watching a Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang doing some crazy stuff. And you're like, I don't understand this. It's like, no shit, you don't understand it. You didn't do the 20 steps before to get to the point to understand that, like to do the algebra and then going back to your multiplication, back to your, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, please, going back to the basic times table. And it's like, you have to actually layer that up. But if you've skipped the layers, of course it's intimidating. Of course it is. And there's nothing wrong with starting back at level 1 and saying, I'm going to get there and layer it up. And I think that's what you and I try to do is go, okay, let's just go back to level 1.
Right.
And what the hardest thing is for people to do is teach level 1 when they're already at level 50.
Correct. Exactly. And it's really learning. And I think that's been the issue in the finance education space for such a long time is that the education that was available was being taught at the level 50 rather than going back to level 1. And thank goodness for financial educators now, because we are able to go back to teach like a 12, or at least I think the best teachers are able to do that, because the average reading level of most Americans is around a 5th or 6th grade reading level, which is about a 12-year-old. So yeah, I mean, not to toot our own horns, but
I know, but I really do think there's a talent in explaining something at like a 3rd grade level with the context of an adult. So like being able to apply it in an adult real life scenario, but explaining it at a level that most can understand, especially, and this is why, because I can say this because I lived it. When you are surrounded not 8, 9, 10, sometimes 12, 14 hours a day with people who all speak this language around you, and you are just hustling to keep up with the language, it becomes part of your vernacular, part of your vocabulary. And you start like, imagine if you were surrounded by an accent all the time, you'd start picking it up, or you start picking up vocabulary from people around you who say the same thing all the time, that you end up absorbing it. And what happens is a lot of accountants like me, or even otherwise financial professionals or something like that, they will just keep going at that level, and they don't realize because it's just the daily vocabulary.
Right.
It's just what other people understand, and they're not trying to speak above you. They don't realize that there is a gap between those two things.
Right. It's exactly what you said earlier, where you're like, I thought everybody grew up knowing the things that I grew up knowing.
Exactly.
And it's like if a fish is spending its entire life swimming in water and you tell it, hey, you're surrounded by this thing, you're like, what? Wait, what do you mean? What is this water?
What are you talking about?
It's like, it's just the way that you exist. And so it's funny because hearing you talk about it, I feel like when my experience in leaving, but I grew up in small town, middle America, football on weekends, church on Sundays. And when I left, it was the opposite for me. It was like, wait, you grew up that way? Like, wait, you grew up knowing this? Why am I so stupid? Why have I not heard of these things? What is, so it's like you get to see it on both ends. And I'm sure it's like in specific things, it's like, like being amazed by the way that people live in different places, which is why travel is so powerful as well. And for folks who don't know Shannon currently lives in Costa Rica. And I want to say you've been living there for a few years now, right?
Yeah, we bought the house 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago next month. Crazy.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but how did you end up in Costa Rica? What was like the reason? What was that journey?
So I have to contextualize it with a couple of key things that happened. So number one, we were just talking about my dad. My dad passed away, unfortunately, in 2013 of liver cancer. And that was a huge, huge gut punch to my life, everything. And the diagnosis was heartbreaking. And then being there, I was the last one to talk to him, the last one to see him. And then cut to 2019. I was now married at the time to Jason. Jason and I went down to Costa Rica for a vacation to visit his parents who were snowbirding down there. They love Costa Rica. They were going there on cruises and stuff. And I knew they spoke Spanish. So I was like, yeah, let's go. This would be so much fun. And I've heard great things about it. Who hasn't heard a great story about Costa Rica? So I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. So we went down for 2 weeks in January 2019. I think it took me all of 48 hours to fall in love with everything about the country, from the people to the attitude to the just like the fact that my heart rate lowered about 10 beats a minute.
Ooh, yes.
Like immediately everyone was just, when we get to it, calm your ass down, like pura vida, right? Yeah. Everything was purely like, it made you refocus your priorities immediately on how you're living your life. It kind of shone a light on your lifestyle and the choices that you're making because you see the contrast, right? Like, again, it's just being exposed to something outside of your fishbowl. And we got down there and I was like, I love this country. This is amazing. Let's come back here again and again. So then we got back from that trip and Jason's dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Oh my gosh, just like one after the other.
Well, 6 years, but yeah, it was
still, it seems like a short period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was still like, I mean, like that's always fresh, right? So you're going, I'm like, oh no. So he gets diagnosed. And then a year later, so he's like, you know, he has chemo, you know, getting better, getting worse. We're tolerating it, right? Or he's tolerating it. He's, you know, going through all the treatments and everything and fighting it. We get to a year later and COVID hits, right? So COVID hits, we get around May 2020 and Jason looks at me and he's like, I'm buying my dad a house in Costa Rica. And I was like, let's do it. Like Jason was also looking at me going, I'm not asking your permission.
I'm just telling you, letting you
I'm
in.
just telling you, we're going to do this. And I was like, I'm not going to fight that. I think that's a great idea. So we were going to buy him this house in Costa Rica for him to spend time there as long as he could. And it was supposed to be done in September 2020. Unfortunately, Mark passed away in July 2020. So he never got to go see the house. Yeah.
That is heartbreaking.
So I know. The house was for him to be able to spend time. And it turned into this thing. And it was part of why we did it was like Jason and I looked at each other and had this kind of like moment of life's too short. Both of our dads, like my dad was answering work emails until the day before he died. Mark was answering work emails until the day before he died. Like they didn't get to properly retire. They didn't get to really, and what is retirement anyway, right? Like they didn't get to, there was no like, okay, now you enter the transitional phase of like retiring. You don't have to do anything, whatever. And then no, there is no schedule. There is nothing. Like you could just pass away tomorrow. Like it's not to be morbid or pessimistic, but it was reality. It made me realize, I was like, Jason, the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
Like saying eventually, whenever, after we do this, after we do that, I go, we're going to finish this house. You and I are going to go down there and we're going to go move in. We're going to go see how it goes. And we'll see, you know, what we're going to do with the house. Like, are we going to stay there? Are we going to rent it out? What are we going to do? Right. And we got down there for a 2-week trip. And it was much longer story, but we got down there for a 2-week trip. We ended up staying for like 8 weeks because we kept extending it. And then we were like, we don't want to go back because it was going into 2021. And we were like, we go back, we have to wear a mask everywhere. And people are, you know, not in a good mood.
That's a nice way of putting it.
We're not in a good mood. And I was like, I think we probably want to stay here. So Jason went back a couple times to take care of things with the business, but I stayed there for most of 2021, like 8 months of 2021. We went back and forth a few times bringing stuff and like getting stuff here and coordinating trips down. And now I consider myself like we're applying for residency. We are looking at the potential of spending the vast majority of our year down there within the next 2 or 3 years.
That's amazing.
Like we're straight up moving to Costa Rica.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And are you in Costa Rica right now, or are you?
No, I'm in Connecticut right now. I have sleeves on.
I know. I didn't even think about it. It was I know. In my mind, you're always in Costa Rica. Like I thought you were permanently there. So, okay.
We have the house in both. So we are just wherever we need to be when we need to be there.
Which probably makes it easier on the business side of things, right?
100%. Yeah. And actually what's cool is the contrast constantly. I would encourage anyone, and I know this is like such a third world problem or such like a weird thing for me to say, but like when you have 2 places you live or you have 2 homes, whatever that looks like for you, even if you rent for a certain period of the year somewhere else, the contrast of the environment is huge because I'm so productive here because most of the time I don't want to go outside when it's cold. So I'm like super productive and focused. And then down there, you cannot get me to sit still for an hour because I want to go in the pool or I want to go for a walk or I want to go to the beach. So like, it's a really weird feeling of, you know, I'm
duality.
I try to get into routines in both places, but I have my own routine in each location.
Interesting.
And to shake that up every few months is kind of a cool reset. So
I love that. That's my ideal situation. Is I would really like to have 2 locations, and I don't mind if there's a couple more, but right now my plan is to buy property in Tucson and then hopefully eventually spend part of my year in Tucson and then summers completely elsewhere. So we'll see what happens. Cause
I like having friends too in both places. Like we have a friend circle down there and hey, are you going to be down here for our birthday party? Hey, are you coming back for this? Like, it's kind of a cool, it's like college. Like, are you going to be back on campus by the time we do this? So it mixes things up a little bit, shakes up your routine. And I think it just keeps you nimble in adapting to new routines and new environments, because every time I go down there, I'm like, okay, like which days do I want to go to the gym? Which days do I want to go do this? And like planning my trips and stuff and our little getaways. So it's fun. It's fun to not live the same Groundhog Day every single day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I love that. And is purchasing property in Costa Rica relatively affordable in comparison to Connecticut, I would assume?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, alone, the property taxes are like $500 a year in Costa Rica. Right. You could live in Costa Rica and like the cost of living, like you could live in a nice place. You can rent for $1,200 a month, like a 2 or 3 bed, 3 bath near the beach. And like groceries are relatively similar depending on what you eat, how often you eat out, whatever, because they have to import a lot of stuff. But the property taxes here, for example, are like 9-10 grand a year. So I'm like, for the price of just our property taxes, forget the mortgage, right? Just our property taxes, we could live in Costa Rica. So it's like, it makes like, I want to like shake people by the shoulders and be like, what are you doing this for? Like the fact that you have a mortgage in a place that you really could live or like come or go from, like Connecticut, I don't have any major roots here, but like, it's one of those things where you go, why are we here? Ask yourself why you're here. Like you have a business here, you have a really good roots here with your family. That's cool. But like, if there's no reason not to leave, then I say, go try and go somewhere else, especially somewhere cheaper. And like, as an accountant, without taxes, ideally, but like without state income taxes, I should say. But we had this kind of awakening of, we are busting our asses just to afford to live in a house that we could, give or take.
Yeah.
So like, why don't we just make some more choices and kind of reset? So that was what we kind of,
it will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see too, if you end up deciding to do something with the property in Connecticut, if you decide to make the move full time. So I'm excited to hear and see your journey, you going through it in Costa Rica and then Deli-Ann starting it in Portugal here.
Yeah. I'm excited for her too.
I just need my friends to go figure it out first. So then when I decide where I want to live,
get your friends to plot. Well, now you have places. Now you have places to crash in all these countries too. Exactly. By the way, that's so now you're like. Now you're like, I can just travel the world and like bring a backpack and be like, hey, friend, I'm coming over.
Girl, I don't travel with a backpack anymore. I'm way too bougie for that these days.
Well, we got all the stuff you need. That's the cool thing. Yes, there you go.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I feel like I could talk to you about that side of things for a while, but what I really do want to talk to you about is tax advice on Instagram.
Yes.
Because you and I kind of went on a little rant. I don't think we recorded it on your podcast, but
I know we should have.
I know, but I was like, let's just save it for my podcast and we could talk about this stuff, because I think that it's such a issue in the space. Specifically, I always tell people when they ask me like tax questions, I'm like, that's above my pay grade. Like you can DIY your investing, but you cannot DIY your taxes. I don't want to DIY anything when it comes to my taxes. And,
I mean, you can, but I wouldn't advise it.
Right. It's like there's a whole IRS out there waiting to just catch you. So we live in an age though, where there is a lot of information that is posted on the internet. And specifically, I see a lot of tax advice on the internet from people who are not tax professionals, and some who are or have dabbled in those I'm not as worried about, but the ones that are specifically not CPAs, not tax professionals in any way, posting about buying a G-Wagon or buying their mom a car and writing it off or doing all of these other things that it's like, this is clickbait, right? I've seen even one of my most recent cringe tax advices that I've seen is people saying that they can write off the expenses for their dog because it's like protection. So
like, here's what they get into, right? This is where they get away with it, is they say you can.
Right.
And I'm like, yes, in one corner of the universe where your dog is like a Belgian Malinois, Doberman, or whatever, and you have the need to do this, and you can write up a really clear business case, there is a corner of the universe where this can happen. But no, your golden doodle who sits by the desk is not your protection dog. You can't simultaneously call it your security dog and your emotional support when you get on a plane. That's double dipping. No,
yeah, right.
But there are like seeing eye dogs and guide animals who are medical expenses, right?
That's different.
That's different. But what they're doing is they're exploiting the nuances into the mainstream and saying, you can deduct your dog. And I'm like, can you? Yes. Oh, yeah. But like 99% of or more people who are listening to this probably can't. So what they're doing is they're taking these little corners of these little, I wouldn't even call them loopholes because they're in the tax law. You can do this, but there are certain conditions that are there that basically don't make it worthwhile for the average taxpayer. So I don't find these to be hugely beneficial because most people listening can't take advantage. They're mostly there to pique curiosity and, like you said, be somewhat clickbait.
Right. Okay. So what do you think are some of the biggest, and I think they're going to be tied together, but the biggest pieces of tax advice that you see that is posted on the internet that you're like, this really, yes, you can do this, but here's the reality. And on the flip side, what are 3 things that you think business owners, small business owners, have in terms of tax opportunities that are often not taken advantage of?
So what's so funny is I think these are the same answer to both, but I'm going to explain each one in the context of what you asked. So there were 3 things I see a lot of online. Well, actually, they won't be the same because I just thought of another one. So one of my personal favorites is an LLC will save you money. It won't. So like, just start an LLC and you can deduct all these expenses and you can do all that. Like you can deduct any expenses you want to, that are business related, whether you have an LLC or not. That is a legal protection tool and completely unrelated to your business. Actually, from a tax standpoint, it's disregarded actually by the IRS.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a sole proprietor or an LLC.
Correct. You're treated the same regardless. So if anyone is convincing you to get an LLC in order to get tax savings, the only way that makes sense is because you can only get an S corporation if you have an LLC or a corporation. But if that's not the end game, then there's no truth to that statement whatsoever. And that's a big misconception out there. And I'm seeing a lot of people just talking about, you want to save in taxes? Just go get an LLC. And I'm like, that
has nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
Well, and it's a waste of time for a lot of people. A lot of people don't even need it. I mean, it depends on what industry you're in, but if you're selling candles, you probably don't need an LLC. You don't need to go through that extra paperwork. But, maybe if you're worried about liability, I feel like, isn't that more of a reason to pursue an LLC?
Liability, yes, but also I look at it as asset protection. So, and again, now we're getting into, this is above my pay grade because this is lawyer shit.
Right.
So this is lawyer shit, but it's going to be, so here's how I look at it is if you have assets worth protecting. So I look at it as 2 gym lockers. Like you go to the gym and you're like, you put your stuff in a locker. Well, what if you could put it in 2 different lockers so that if someone opened one and broke in, they only got half your stuff or they only got the stuff you put in locker 1. What this is doing is creating 2 separate lockers behind these locks that like, okay, that means that if I put the business money in this one and my personal money in this one, if one of these gets, taken, they can't get everything.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're trying to balance the risk, balance the liability out and try to limit it, which is exactly what limited liability company is.
Yes.
So when you look at it that way, it's like, do I want to have that or am I willing to put it all into one locker and willing to take that risk? And the answer could be yes or no, but that's up to you and a lawyer.
That's a beautiful way of describing it. See, guys, she's a fantastic teacher. That was a great analogy.
I go, would you put all your stuff in one or would you split it into 2 just to hedge your likelihood, right?
Right.
So the other thing I would say is people are just like going ham over this Augusta Rule thing, which is you can rent out your house or you rent out your house to your business for 14 days, tax free, blah, blah, blah.
Is that because of Rihanna? And now everybody's talking about it since she did it or since the guy did it and he made I think he said 2 years of his mortgage or something. For the Super Bowl?
I don't know about that.
You'll have to look it up. So this guy, for the Super Bowl, Rihanna rented this man's house for I think 10 days and paid him $500,000 just to use his mansion for 10 days or something.
Yeah. So the Augusta Rule enables you to do something like that. So that is like a two-party transaction though, where you're renting your house out to another person. They pay you rent and you don't have to claim the income on your taxes, which is phenomenal for that guy. Congratulations.
Right.
And this was named after the Augusta, Georgia for the masters because people wanted to rent their houses out for the masters because they were getting good money for it. But they were like, I don't want to get taxed on this money. So they actually lobbied in Congress and they got this thing called the Augusta Rule, which is section 280A, which is basically saying up to 14 days is tax-free before we start taking you seriously as renting your house out. And we would actually tax you on the income. So how people are using this, and this is okay, by the way, this is totally allowed, is that when you have, for example, an S corporation, which is a separate and distinct entity from you as an individual, now what happens is the S corporation can rent from you, your primary residence, for, let's say, a monthly board meeting or a monthly gathering of your employees or whatever it may be, a monthly training at your home for up to 14 days and pay you a market rate of rent for that. And as long as you can prove all of these factors are they all work and they're compliant, then you can take that money tax free. So you get a double dip here because you're going to have a business expense that lowers your profit and therefore lowers your taxes on the business.
Right.
And you're going to get tax-free income to you. So it's a tax-free transfer of cash from your business to you. So this is a brilliant strategy, which answers your second question. However, the way it is being pitched and the way anything gets pitched on social media, understand they have 15 to 30 seconds to grab your attention and tell you like the sexiest part of the strategy. Right. So it's like, you can just send this much money to your bank account and you can call it the Augusta Rule. It's like, no, you can't do that. Like
not exactly.
There is a way. There is a very specific way to do this legitimately. And trust me when I say this, because I've been through IRS audits where this came up. And the main thing they're looking for is, was the rate fair and reasonable? Like, can you support the rate using comparables? Are you finding other similar conference rooms or other similar function spaces and renting out at a fair rate considering your zip code area? Is there actually money being moved? So like, are you not like, if you're waiting until the end of the year to do this like huge transaction, it throws kind of a red flag. So you want to make sure there's actually like rental payments happening during the year and there's a lease agreement. And then the other thing is evidence of whatever it is you did. So if you're calling it a board meeting, they're like, show me the meeting minutes, right? So like they want the receipts, literally and figuratively. They want the proof that what you're saying is true. And this is how the story went. They want to illustrate the story in proof. So what you have to be mindful of is sometimes, and that usually this is worth it, but sometimes these strategies that you see like this, hiring your kids is another one, right? Sometimes it's not worth the squeeze. Because sometimes you have to do so much documentation, so much extra work, so much covering your butt just to make sure you can take the deduction that you're like, it ain't worth risking it. Like it's just not worth doing it because I have to do so much work to take the deduction that I'm just like, if you're like me, I'm just too lazy, quite frankly, to worry about all this stuff. So I'm going to take like a couple of days and I won't take the whole 14 or whatever. That's okay. But you got to do what your risk tolerance is and what you're willing to work for, because there's actually work involved in taking the deductions. So that's one of the big ones too.
Well, and I love too, you and I had talked not that long ago about, I think it was when I was looking for a new tax team and I had talked to you. I don't remember what it was specifically we were talking about, but you're like, sometimes you have to like decide between, is it worth the fact that this is more likely to trigger an audit to save me $400? Like, is that really worth it to you?
I remember that conversation because it was in the context of like, I ain't risking my license to save your ass $18. Like
no!
I always.
Oh my gosh. Even when doing my taxes this year with Collective, I was like, is anything here like a red flag that I'm like, I will pass on the tax savings if it's even remotely a red flag. And it's like, and you do have to kind of weigh those pros and cons, which I feel like on social media, it's like, oh no, it's so easy to take advantage of the tax code. And it's like, not really.
Yeah. Well, especially because here's the funny thing. There's two things there. One is I want to go through like, are there really red flags? Because I think people are scaring you with the idea of red flags that aren't really red flags. It's not about the red flag. It's about, are you prepared to defend that?
Right.
And if you're not prepared to defend it, then then it's up to you. But if you got audited, that's going to get disallowed. And that will crack open more issues because once they don't trust you on one thing, good luck. Ugh. Like once they've proven that you lied about, look at a relationship, your boyfriend, your husband, whatever, lies about something very serious once. And that trust is so hard to repair.
Right.
And it's a similar thing with the IRS in your tax return where they're like, well, she lied about her income. What the hell else is she hiding? And once you break that trust with them, it becomes so much harder to like regain your respect with them. And that's what we're trying to avoid is like, do you really want to die on that hill? Because like, how much is it really going to save you versus how much is it going to harm you if this ever gets called into question?
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. And then you mentioned the red flags, and then is it worthwhile too? And it's a lot of stuff that can generate a ton of tax savings for you. But like I said, you have to be really ready to defend it with that documentation. I'm seeing a lot of stuff coming through my desk of like, well, my preparer said I could just take this deduction. I didn't need to do any documentation. I'm like, well, we're probably going to lose that. Like you have to be willing and ready to pay back the taxes for those things if you do lose the fight on that.
So my immediate thought is, what if somebody's like, I'm going through this audit and then suddenly they want paperwork for it? Is it you can create the paperwork for it then, or is it that you should have already had it created?
You should have already had, like if you took the deduction, then it should have really happened. So what you're doing is you're fabricating documentation, which is not allowed or favorable. People will do it. I'm not going to lie. People will reconstruct mileage logs. People will know, but the IRS agents kind of know. Like, so if it's in a spreadsheet, they're like, you just made this. Who are you kidding? It has a timestamp on it. Like, just don't be messy. No, I would not advise like recreating documentation. I always find that like honesty is the best policy on, hey, I was not aware that I would need to do this. By the way, this is why you need good representation and an EA or a CPA or a tax attorney, because they will come to the table and they'll say, hey, this is my client, Chloe. She didn't know she was supposed to do this. Like you know how bad people get educated in this country on what they're supposed to do tax wise. Like the other preparer did not provide her any information. So here's what we're willing to do. We're willing to meet you in the middle if you want to just say like, we're going to claim this much of it and move on. Because ultimately, if you get audited, the IRS agent wants to get as much as they can and get away from this case as soon as possible because they have more cases to get through. They have a huge backlog. So the faster you guys can get to an agreement on what is close enough and what is okay from their standpoint that they will accept, then the better off you'll be. I did this with a few audits recently where I was like, we could go through this exercise and it could take several weeks, or we could just call it this, meet in the middle, split it halfway. Are you okay with that? And almost 9 times out of 10, you'll get, yeah, let's just do that. Cause like they don't want to do all the work either. They don't want to go through all your bank statements.
And it's like win's a win, gotta take
it. or you give them one thing and then you fight on another thing. Like there's a whole conversation happening around an audit, the constant, and it's another human you're at the table with. So it's really not that intimidating. Again, for me, it's not that intimidating because you're just talking to somebody and you're like trying to figure out how it's going to work out, but it's fine. The other thing I was going to say now I remember is they have social media too.
Right.
So the IRS also has social media. The IRS is actually on Instagram. The IRS is actually on LinkedIn. The IRS is actually on TikTok. By the way, the
people
IRS
do not think about that.
They have accounts, guys. I follow them. And here's what's funny. They also have accounts, but agents I have talked to, I have worked with on cases are like, you see this TikTok crap? Can you believe they're doing, like, they're showing me videos. They're going, can you believe this? And I'm like, I don't know. And
hopefully not of your clients, right?
My clients, but of people who are claiming to be professionals
tax experts,
or giving
whatever.
advice. Right. So they're like looking at these, like, I tried to look up Augusta Rule and I looked on TikTok and I was like, oh God. And they said, the agents, again, the IRS is watching. So the IRS is looking at these videos and going, oh, gag. I can't. So, and
I would love it if the IRS started commenting on like those videos and just being like, with the eye emoji, just like, we're watching.
No, you know how bad? I don't know who's in charge of @IRS News or the @IRS accounts, because there are some other practitioners who are a little bit like narcs that will like go onto these things and they'll be like, @IRS, what do you think about this? They don't respond. Well, they don't respond to anything. But I was like, I need can we get like the equivalent of an Elon Musk to like take over their account?
Oh my gosh, that would just be so funny. Even if it's like an innocent thing just to scare people. Like,
or now you gave me this idea, which is going to be a big giveaway where like I'll create an account.
Yeah, just
I wonder if I can create
IRS.
an account that's like at the real IRS and like start.
Oh my God, we wouldn't want to open you up to being prosecuted though for like impersonating
for pretending
the IRS.
I was an agent.
Yes.
Like, but I would also probably show it and go, but tell me you don't agree with everything I said.
Right. You'd be like, listen, I'm like an anti-hero out here just protecting people from bad TikTok advice. That's amazing.
I know. That's so funny. It's like the Deadpool of taxes just going around.
Just going around.
I would love it.
I love that idea. Really rescuing people in that way. Holding people accountable.
Yes.
That's funny. No, when I grabbed my notebook to write down, I was writing down minute 41 because I was like, the IRS is a relationship. And I was like, ooh, that's good. I was like, we need to make a reel out of that one because I've never really heard anybody talk about it that way. And I love how you humanize it because I do think
they're human. Yeah. By the way, they're Midwesterners who have to work from home, who have kids. Because I talked to them during the pandemic and I turned into their therapist sometimes.
Oh my gosh.
Because they were like, Shannon, I don't know anymore. We have 6 box trucks outside the office. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know when we're going back to the office. I would call the IRS with questions. And then if I got a human on the phone, which was like, again, rare because you have better shot at winning roulette. You have no idea. Accounting roulette was calling the IRS in the last 3 years because you just got hung up on. Ugh. So after an hour of hold.
Right.
So like you had hope. You have better chance of getting Taylor Swift tickets, okay, than getting through the IRS. So we were trying to call the IRS. And once I got in, I was talking to these like normal people and they would be like, I'm just, we're really stressed out. It's a lot. We have all these box trucks of people. We're not paid very well. Box trucks and mail outside we have to go through. And we're just trying to make it work. Like we're trying to support. We just believe that this is an agency that needs to stay alive and that we need to like get people's tax returns processed so they can get their refunds and we can get everything moving. Aww. Like they are not an evil organization.
It's not what we think of. It's like not at all what we think of.
They're just the treasurer,
right? Of
like, we pay our dues to be citizens, whatever it is, right? And then someone made a joke that was like, in childhood is your free trial or something. Like this is our subscription to be a citizen and then childhood is your free trial.
That's so like freemium.
Yeah. But like now this is your subscription fee to be a citizen here. Mm-hmm. We are going to collect that from you. And if you're trying to skirt the system and pay less and in an illegal way, we want to find out about it so that other people aren't paying your bill for you.
Right.
I mean, we're pissed. Think about how pissed you are when you have to split the bill when the couple down there order 2 bottles of wine and the lobster and you're like, hell no, we are not splitting it 4 ways.
Right.
Right. That is how taxpayers feel when people are cheating the system and they're like, wait, I have to foot the bill for that. Let's just like, hold on a second. So you have to, I'm not saying to narc on other people. I'm not saying to report other people, but I'm saying that we're all kind of in this together. Right. And that includes the IRS just trying to make sure it's fair.
Yeah.
So you have to humanize them and you have to understand that these are just normal Americans working normal jobs who are probably not paid very well, like teachers, unfortunately, or law enforcement and other things. And they are now on display as this like evil organization that's out to get you because they're taking your money. And I'm like, it's just the law, guys.
Right.
It's not a big deal.
Exactly. Well, and I do love how you humanize it because I do think that a lot of us who are doing our best to follow the rules and do what we're supposed to be doing and are, whatever. The ones who shouldn't be concerned, likely, of necessarily getting in trouble with the IRS, it's this big fear of this, like, scary monster who's going to do everything they can to put us behind bars. And, like, when you really break it down, it's like they're humans. They're going to work with you. This is not something that, has to be this secret service. That's what I picture. I picture like secret service agents who like will walk in wearing sunglasses and suits.
They're not the Gestapo.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's literally what I picture.
They're not the Gestapo.
And it's so
they don't even get guns. Most of them.
Of course. I mean, why would they need them most of the time? I would think. No. So it's funny and refreshing to hear it of like.
But that's the reality. I think like everyone should meet an IRS agent once in their life and go like, oh, they're just like normal Americans.
Oh,
no
like
shit.
You party on the weekends? Oh, you're just like you do stuff with hobbies?
The problem is they don't have storefronts, so you never actually see them.
Right.
So anyone listening, and Chloe too, like imagine going into the DMV, or the whatever we call them, RMV, DMV, like to get your registrations done. Think of the people who work there.
Same people.
Yeah,
that's so
true. Now it's like, oh, that just reduced my expectations. That just reduced my my stress level.
Right.
And then now when you get these like wonky letters from the IRS, understand that like the intern at the DMV sent you this. Like, please de-escalate the stress level. Please de-escalate how serious you're taking this. Read it, like consume it, but like you're not in trouble. You just got paperwork from a place that shells out paperwork. Like it's okay. There might be something on there you have to do, but it's very normal to get IRS letters. And I think it's because I get them all the time because it's my job that it's just completely demystified for me. But if you're not used to it, I understand the stress.
It's scary. Every time I get a letter from the IRS, I'm like, I'm done for.
Yeah, but like you don't get stressed out. You get a letter from your phone company or your letter from your credit card company. It's not the same stress, but like this isn't any different. It's a company that basically you owe money to or has a question for you. And this is the only way they know how to communicate because they have fax machines and letters and they don't have email and they don't have IM and they don't have anything.
Snail mail.
This is all they know. You're lucky that they're not sending it to you on a horseback. Like, so
this is the pigeon.
Right, exactly. So it's really not that like, it's easy for me to say it's not that stressful, but I just need people to like take a deep breath and go like, it's really not that serious.
I love that. I think that is so refreshing. And it's not even something that I was expecting to take away from this podcast episode, but it does remind me of when I first started learning about investing. And I thought the same thing about investors. You think it's just the guys on Wall Street screaming at each other, wearing suits, wearing a headset. And like, you think that's what investing in the stock market is. And then you realize lazy index fund investing is like the chillest thing you could possibly imagine. It's so easy. So yeah. I think that's really refreshing. So awesome. Well, I have 2 more fun questions for you, but before we get to the fun questions, I just want to have you shout out, where can people find you? How can they work with you? What are your offerings? Promote yourself.
So obviously keep what you earn on all podcast platforms. Come over and listen to that. We do 5 episodes a week and we have a ton of great business content, not just tax stuff. And I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, I'm on all the things. So you can just find me at Shannon K. Weinstein on Instagram. You'll find Keep What You Earn pretty much everywhere if you Google it. And then most of what I do, probably for your listeners, I have 2 things. I'm a fractional CFO for business owners who are, north of $1 million, $2 million. I also do a ton of courses and educational material for people who are just trying to get into this like business space and they're intimidated by the financial side. I have a business financial quick starter, and that's a quick little like your first 6 weeks in business, what you got to go do. So we're breaking down the basics for people and we're expanding the course offerings more and more this year. So that's where you can probably check me out.
And we will put those all in the links down below in the show notes. So thank you for coming on. Now for the fun questions. I'm actually going to add in an extra fun question because we forgot to mention it on the podcast earlier. Your dad had a different take on inheritance money, correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that story.
Okay. So real quick, basically he said, I'm going to pass away. Like he was very in tune with the fact that he was diagnosed and he knew what was coming. So he's looked at me and my sister and he's like, I have this much money set aside for you 2, and I'm going to give it to you now. And you're going to have to do one of 2 things with it. You are either going to buy your first house using this as a deposit, or you are going to pay for your wedding. And then the other thing you do not choose is all on you. And what he knew and I knew was like, that wasn't actually a choice. Like there was a very clear thing to do. Yeah, it was like a test. My sister saved up for her wedding. And I went and bought my first house, which then also paid for the wedding after I sold it. So I was like, and my dad, I knew was just like, yeah, that was the point.
That was exactly like what you're supposed to do.
That was what was supposed to happen. Yeah. So he wanted to make sure that his daughters were taken care of, had a roof over their heads or a person to help take care of them. He just wanted to know that like he wouldn't die watching his kid figuring life out from the family couch. Like he wanted to know that we were going to be okay and that we had that springboard to go off of sooner rather than later. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and I've seen a lot of folks moving in the direction of kind of doing whatever it is that you were planning on giving your kids when you die, doing it kind of over the course of their lifetime, because you do want to see what they do with it and you do want to see them enjoying it now. So I love that. I think that's really cool. Okay. So my next fun question is, what is your very first money memory?
Ooh, I would say, I think the one that stands out the most for me is like having to save up for the first thing I wanted to buy by myself, which was my PlayStation. Like it was my first, like I bought that, like my possession. I like would not let go of that thing. So I was like, that represents the first time I ever really like scrounged up my own money and earned that. So that was a really big memory for me.
How old were you?
I think it was 9 or 10.
So then, since you weren't working for chores, was it all through bets and like intellectual conversations with your dad that you earned that money?
Yeah. And the fact that they would just buy me things, let's be real. Like they were like, all right, fine. But it was like special treats. They would buy things like, I think when you're a kid, you don't realize how much things actually cost.
Of course
so
not.
I was like totally oblivious to it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then is there anything that you're binging right now? Anything that you're obsessed with? It could be a TV show, a podcast series, a new type of cereal. What are you obsessed with right now?
I am, there's so many things actually. I'd say podcasts in general. I'm listening to a podcast like every day. And to be honest with you, I'm binging Orange Theory. I'm going to Orange Theory Fitness like 3 times a week. And I'm like obsessed with it. I want to go every day, but my legs don't let me.
They're like, nah, calm down, Shannon.
Like I don't think in years I have ever been like, I really want to go to the gym today, but I shouldn't.
Wow.
Like
that's a good feeling.
It's a weird feeling. So I'm like, I am twisted. What is going on? Because my knees feel like shit. My legs feel like shit. I can't move. Everything is jelly, but I'm like, but I want to go.
You're like, but this is great. I love it.
I know. It's really fun because I'm obedient and very score oriented and competitive. So I'm like, I want to beat my score. Like it's gamified fitness and I'm here for it.
Yeah. Essentially everybody I know who goes to Orange Theory, I feel like they all love it.
Yeah.
Like they're all obsessed with it. So very cool. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast today. I'm glad we got to dive deeper into your story, and we'll leave links to everything down in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you so much for listening to the Money Bear podcast. If you've made it this far, do us a favor, take 2 seconds, rate, review, and subscribe. It seriously means the world to me. And if you just take a sec to do that, I will appreciate you endlessly. And if you do, let me know on Instagram and I'll thank you personally. So got that. And of course, since we were talking about anything financial on this show, please note that nothing on this show is intended as financial advice. I don't know you, unfortunately, and because of that, I cannot tell you what to do with your money. You got to work with a financial professional who knows your situation, who is preferably a fiduciary, and keep in mind that everything that we talk about on this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It's all my opinion. So there's that. If you want to see our full terms and conditions, head on over to the show notes. And while you're there, we've got free resources for you to get started on your money journey down in the show notes as well, including a free guide to help you with your budgeting templates and budgeting tutorials and investing 101, understanding the different accounts that are out there. All that good stuff is inside of my free guide, which is also available at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And if you're ready to take our relationship to the next level, I am also hosting a monthly investing class. And that investing class, you can find the times we're offering it this month at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/webinar. That link is in the show notes as well. And that's where you have the chance to meet me live and ask those money questions live. It's a good time. We've had over 20,000 people as of recording this join or register. And yeah, it's always nice to meet you guys. So I hope to see you there. Again, all that is available down in the show notes. So thank you again for coming and listening. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.